Here we are again. For those of you who may be new to the channel, maybe this is your first video you're seeing me covering this, but every single time, right from day one, we were very clear. We were exceedingly very clear. When the Brexiteers said, "Oh, don't worry, nothing is going to change." Meanwhile, of course, at the 2016 referendum, you had Leavers simultaneously saying we were going to stay in the single market and customs union, but others saying that we were going to leave, and then others in the middle that we were somehow going to leave the single market and customs union, but also maintain the exact same benefits of staying in the single market customs union while simultaneously also leaving it. This was the thing we were constantly saying. If you are saying you are going to do this, which in this case was we are going to leave the single market, which means no more freedom of movement, and that means for goods as well as people. How then, and what impact is this going to have on all these goods that cross over into Europe? Bear in mind, Europe is our biggest market for sending goods to and from. Doesn't matter that you leave Europe and start trading with the rest of the world, because distance in trade still matters. Trade gravity is an observable fact that countries always trade most and foremost first with their closest neighbors. That for us is always going to be the EU. And now all these barriers have come up, making it almost impossible for businesses to trade. And we've covered it time and time and time again. And the response tends to be, we've lost about 30% of our business because European customers don't want to buy from the UK anymore. We've had to increase the cost because the raw goods we got from Europe or things like that, we can't get them at the same price, so we're going to have to send our prices up, which is hurting our business as well. Or, as we've seen in some cases, what's the point? Because of all this extra red tape, what's the point of exporting or importing anymore? And that's been the overwhelming response we've seen when we've covered these businesses. And once again, here we are. And just in time for the coronation, this is about a company that, well, they sell monarchy merch. And bear in mind, with something like the coronation, what do you think the demand for this type of merchandise is going to be at the moment? Well, guess what? If you're a European and you somehow have a bizarre obsession with our monarchy, more power to you for that. But you're probably having an incredibly hard time trying to get your hands on some King Charlie merch at the moment. Why? Because of Brexit. And this company is one of the biggest companies that supplies this type of merchandise. So let's find out about more of their problems. But I'll say it, as we've always said again, it's the exact same problems we have heard from every single type of business that is experiencing these problems. So, before we go cracking on into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there is a link to my Patreon page and a notification link called Buy Me Coffee, which you well, Buy Me Coffee. And of course, there is the YouTube thank you button and the Pony Club as well. So, let's crack on into this. So, this comes from The Guardian with the title of Brexit has been an utter disaster. The royal heritage firm that can't sell its wares abroad. With its products on sale at Buckingham Palace, Westminster Abbey, and museums across the country, as well as in European capitals, Jeremy Shaw, the managing director of the Derbyshire-based Heritage Playing Cards, has a particular reason to hope the coronation will be good for business, as he is set up 30 years ago. Well, the past few years have been anything but. First, the COVID pandemic shut down all museums and their shops, meaning an almost total collapse in domestic and overseas sales. Then, the country's leading producer of heritage playing cards, whose popular Kings and Queens of England pack has been updated ahead of the coronation to include that of course, King Charles III, saw its export business almost completely wiped out because of Brexit. Every company we have followed has seen exactly the same thing. You know, from the seed company in Doncaster to the lace company almost very recently. What has been their primary problem? Brexit. All this red tape. And of course, there'll be no barriers to trade. There'll be no changes at all, they said. And when we questioned, but you're going to do this, so what happens? Oh, don't listen to that. That's just Project Fear. So the effect of Britain leaving the European Union has destroyed 85% of its company's trade with EU customers, which accounted for 35% of its total turnover. Every single time, 30%. That seems to be the overwhelming number that we are seeing, that these companies have lost between 30 to 40% of their business turnover. That's huge. That is huge for a company just to lose. So, before Brexit, we got an order at 9 in the morning, and 3 days later, we were sending it. It was sitting in a shop at a museum in Paris, Brussels, or Vienna, said Shaw. Now, almost all of our EU customers have given up. The paperwork and the cost of getting packages over to the EU mean they think it's just not worth it. Brexit has been a complete and utter disaster. So, as well as the UK themed packs, the kings and queens, the prime ministers, the stately homes, and many more subjects, the company has supplied the European markets with its bespoke gifts for different countries, such as the German castles, and of course celebrating the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. But for not much longer. We are running down all our German and French stock, and then we will finish. We will donate whatever we have left to the schools as teaching materials for foreign language lessons, said Shaw. We are just battering our heads against a brick wall. We spent so much time and effort in investing, building up that market, that we might as well not have bothered. I have my absolute deepest sympathies for this guy. It is not easy to see a business that this guy had built up over 30 years and just come to a point where it's just like, yep, you just shouldn't have even bothered. And he's lost, as we've seen there, 35% of his business. That's a massive, massive amount for him to lose. So the initial problem for EU shops or museums that order the cards from the EU, from the UK, is the form filling. Then the customers find themselves stung by extra VAT charges when the goods arrive. In all, it is proving too much for many small operators. We have to pay a fee to get the parcel out of the country, something like £3, said Shaw. Then, when it gets to their end, they have to pay a processing fee. Then, customers are told there is a VAT charge on their parcel. They then refuse to pay for the parcel, which has to be returned to us, and to cap it all, we have to pay import duty to get it back again. It is an administrative nightmare for us and the customers. None of this happened before we left the European Union. So Shaw said he recently received an order from the National Trust in Northern Ireland. Even this transaction involved a post-Brexit form filling. Despite the Northern Ireland be part of the UK, London and Brussels is spending much of the past 2 years trying to make the intra-UK trade across the Irish Sea easier. It is just unbelievable, he said. Shaw's company operates from a Derbyshire town of Ilkeston. Nearby is Cluny Lace, another small firm. It provided material for the royal wedding dress that was worn by Kate Middleton. It too has been in the headlines because of the disastrous effects Brexit has had on its business model. The firm's managing director, Charles Mason, says the taxman has imposed an 8% duty on all return from all its lace sent to France for dyeing. In a letter to the Financial Times, he wrote, "We have spent more than 200 years building up our business and fought for over 30 years against the global textile trend of moving to the Far East, and it has now been killed off by our own side. In a couple of years, we all lose." The Office for Budget Responsibility has forecast that Brexit will result in the UK's trade intensity being 15% lower in the long run if it had remained in the EU. And think about that. Trade is 15% lower. What does that actually translate to in terms of loss of GDP? If you're Rishi Sunak and you're trying to restart the UK economy, well, the best thing Rishi Sunak could do is rejoin the single market and customs union. But he's not going to do that, is he? So Shaw also added, "I have written to HMRC several times about this, and they do not reply. They just send out their pointless circulars. They have never got back with any answers." So, yeah, another business having its business model absolutely destroyed by Brexit. I mean, he's lost about 35%. I mean, we always see this. It's very rare they actually put the number of what that means. But and it's again, I hesitate to put a number to myself, but I would probably reckon that is in the hundreds of thousands. Like 35%, that is easily in the hundreds of thousands. And bear in mind, he had a business where he was doing similar things for things in Germany and France. Well, he can no longer provide those because of Brexit. So that entire product line, as you saw there, gone up in smoke. This is it. Every single time we see one of these stories, it is the exact same thing. Brexit is destroying business. And I have to say, just how longer can we deny this is a thing? I do not suspect they will be able to keep this up forever. I think even when we get Keir Starmer in, Keir Starmer, sooner or later, he is going to have to sort of recognize the reality of what Brexit has done and be honest with the British public. Now, he'll get some grumblings. That's true. But I think when you look at the polls, I think the vast majority of the British public would be very happy to return back to being members of the European Union. And I think there might be a case for Starmer to go, well, look, I'm not going to hold a referendum. I'm just going to rejoin. Just for the sake and pragmatic stance of the UK. But, I doubt, of course, he would do that. But, we can but dream, as they say. But certainly, I think we'll see Starmer doing more alignment deals, which would certainly help ease trade somewhat, but it would never return to functioning until we rejoin the single market customs union. And that, I think, will be the start. And then eventually, once we're inside that, well, why aren't we full members? It's the exact path we have predicted since day one. And shock and horror, it's happening. Why? Because the Brexiteers, as we've seen very clearly, even admitted by apparently insiders in Boris Johnson's own Leave campaign, they didn't have a plan. It's just fantasy. Brexit will work. Well, what are you going to do to make it work? Brexit will work. But no, what are you going to do? Brexit will work. Trust me. Believe us. You're not believing hard enough. Believe Brexit more. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, you know, tell you what, if you're in the UK and you really feel the need for a set of playing cards, please go help and support this business. Or if you need any lace, go check out, I doubt they'll have too much an effort, but everyone helps, as they say. But it's not going to replace the 35% loss that they have suffered from this. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, as always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button before you leave. And of course, down below there's the Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can all buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course the Pony Club down below as well. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, we'll see you all next time.